my previous role as a global chef for Whole Foods Market in the US, I worked across all departments, so fish, seafood, produce. And so I would do this for work, but at home I'd be practicing, how do I make this without any animals? I really couldn't have been vegan at that job, having to do everything. When I left that position was the day I went vegan, and that was over 6 years ago. We're going on 7 years. And off the back of that, I've always been thinking, what else can I do besides just show people how to cook plant-based? And touring slaughterhouses and chicken farms before, and touring so many vegetable farms and mushroom farms, the light just clicked of how the similarities between a chicken farm and a mushroom farm are. And so why couldn't we just transition from one to the other, chicken to mushroom?
Just noticed there, it's obviously called Whole Farm. We call it Beck's Farm for some reason. So we just need to work out what we actually want to call it. We call it Beck's Farm because we rented off Mr. Beck's. So that's the story.
So Harry's got a really challenging role in the whole project. He's the one putting together the whole little mushroom company, transitioning the actual chicken farm to grow mushrooms. So he's putting in all that legwork and going through all the challenges and ups and downs of it. And he'll also get to see and share the amazingness of it all.
This farm was one of the very early breeder farms in the UK. It was built in the 1960s, and its purpose at that point was to house breeder birds for fertile egg production. I suppose from our point of view, the interesting thing is this was right at the start of the UK broiler industry, which has gone through its full cycle, and we're now repurposing it to do a different job, as in plant-based. I worked in the feed industry, the animal feed industry, for a number of years, then moved across to chicken production and then egg production. So I've covered both chicken and eggs in my career. And then when I set up my own business 20 years ago, that has followed the same pattern. So we did free-range chicken first, followed by free-range eggs, and now we're doing specialty mushrooms.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, it's not what comes first, it's what comes next, I think is the question. So chickens for us came first, then eggs, and then what comes next? Obviously mushrooms. That's copyrighted.
My role within the Little Mushroom Company is really about looking at not only the different routes to market, and at the moment we're still very much in the process of figuring that out. We've got very close links with Tesco, and they're working very closely with us on it. So there's all different opportunities, and my job is to look at those, to see what are the most commercially viable, what makes sense in a time frame and when we need to do it. We believe we know that a poultry unit will work, but it's now actually testing it and making sure. So there's a lot riding on the Beck's farm.
So what I'd like to do now is just explain how our little mushroom farm has evolved from what was a chicken unit. So basically we had a small poultry unit, which was 4 sheds in, we'll call it an H block, joined together by a central corridor. So in its poultry life, it was shed 1, shed 2, shed 3, shed 4. And the birds lived in each individual shed. The eggs were collected by hand, they were taken to the egg store, they were sorted, and then twice a week they were sent off to the hatchery. And that's how it used to be. That farm, unfortunately, has become too small in today's commercial world, and that farm therefore has ceased being a poultry farm. What we've done is used the same layout, but instead of chickens, we've converted this to growing room 1, growing room 2 as phase 1, and then we collect the mushrooms by hand, or we pick the mushrooms by hand, we take them to the central store, we select them, we trim them, we store them in our chill room, which built a chill room here, and then they're collected in a chilled vehicle and taken off to the mushroom packing centre. Now, the reason that this farm has become too small is because it was set up in the 1960s, a lot of manual labour, a lot of basic, labour-intensive routines. In today's world, that's not viable. So what this is for us is, whilst it was a very small chicken farm, it's actually quite a commercially sized mushroom unit. This gives you a better idea of the layout. So you can see the mirror image behind. So 2 sheds this side, 2 sheds that side, joined by a central corridor.
It had expired really its usefulness, so it's just been sat empty for 2 years. So we've now taken this redundant farm and brought in the mushrooms, and it's really exciting. It's given the farm new purpose and a new lease of life, and something that is, as far as we know, completely unique in the UK as it stands.
This is our first look-see, and I think we've done 2 sheds now. We've converted 2 sheds from poultry to mushrooms. We know we can do it. I think the next step now is to look to scale it up. So we've done shed 1 and shed 2. The next step would be to do shed 3 and shed 4. And then we've got a fully operational small mushroom plant. If the demand for specialty mushrooms is sufficient, then there are potentially lots of little poultry farms that could go through the same process and therefore could move from being a livestock farm to a mushroom farm. So the model is the same. It's just really supply and demand. If the product is required, then we can do it.
We're trying to replicate the normal growing environment for the mushrooms. So generally it's quite a long dark period with a smaller period of daylight, a bit like in the autumn. We're giving it sort of damp conditions, so it's that humidity that we're not trying to achieve, sort of 90% humidity, and the temperatures are around sort of 15 degrees is what we're aiming for. You can get a bit of variability. If it gets a bit warm, they grow a bit quicker. So you can slow it down a bit by reducing the temperatures, but it's important to keep that airflow and obviously the humidity and the temperature. Those are the key things we're measuring.
In terms of our learning process, we've been very much initially guided by Derek Sarno as to what we should be looking at, and he's pointed us towards Smithy mushrooms up in Lancashire. Smithy have obviously been growing specialty mushrooms for many years, and John at Smithy has been a great help at helping us set up the facility and then talking us through the steps of the process. So John is our guide, and John has backed us up, fantastically throughout what we've done so far.
Originally, my mother introduced me to the job. My mother come to work on this farm. It was an oyster mushroom farm. We're just starting up as an oyster mushroom farm. My mother said, "Oh, come and work for this farm. They're looking for someone to make the substrate for oyster mushrooms." And that's where it all started, and it's never finished. I didn't even know what an oyster mushroom. Listen, this was, I think, in 1992. I didn't know what an oyster mushroom was. I don't think most of the public knew what an oyster mushroom was. When you start making something and seeing it grow, and seeing these strange mushrooms, I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And I've never looked back from there. I've got my brother here, my nephew's here, my mother's still here, mother and father are still here, my sister's in the office. So it was a whole family affair that it's supported all of us for the last 30 years. So this is your typical oyster mushroom bale. Probably 4 weeks to get to this position where it's ready to pick. So, ready to pick, master will pull them off the log. There you go, fresh yellow oyster mushroom. So we decide which variety of spawn we want to add to the log, introduce some fresh air and some light. The whole process takes, I'd say, 3 weeks. 3 weeks incubation time, and then picking on the 4th week. Harry's going to struggle. I think I've warned him he's going to struggle as well, because It's the time of the crops and the speed. You know, you don't realise how quick a mushroom grows. Within a few days, well, they double in size and enough every day. So you can walk in a room and think, oh, it's not ready. The next day you go in and the mushrooms are too big. Timing is a big issue with these mushrooms. To understand the speed, looking after the mushrooms, it's not all computer control systems. Everything I grow here now is us wandering into a shed and saying, oh, it smells all right, or the humidity is right. It's getting used to that is the difficult part.
So Derek calls you the godfather of mushrooms.
Oh, that's nice to know. Mushy Johnny.
So why do you think he calls you the godfather of mushrooms?
He's fantastic. So obviously, since I've met him, this little quiet guy who didn't say boo to a goose when he first arrived, he's non-stop and I just support him all the way along. He's supported me, obviously, through the marketing, what he does for these mushrooms. I'd say 8-10 years ago, no one knew anything about these mushrooms. The amount I used to go and do shows and show our mushrooms. The question was, can you eat this mushroom? Then Derek comes along, starts shredding king oyster and pressing oyster, making them into steaks. It's just completely changed it. People are getting more involved. I seen oyster mushroom sales increase, plus king oyster. I was doing 300 kilos a week or something. We do probably 3 or 4 ton now. That's how much it's grown, the business, by people understanding what to do with the mushrooms. Listen, you only have to look online what Derek's doing with all the different recipes for mushrooms. There's nothing he can't do with a mushroom.
Today, super excited, I'm gonna show you how to make these amazing lion's mane steaks. You guys, this will blow away anybody, especially meat eaters. Stay tuned.
Mushrooms have this amazing texture and ability to replicate what I feel of animal muscle. So instead of using animals, I've been really working a lot towards using just mushrooms. And that satisfies this whole need for like the experience of cooking and how to work with the mushrooms and the textures rather than animals. Because when I stopped eating animals, I didn't stop because I didn't like the taste. I stopped because it's not right for me to be eating animals. It's not the best choice. So as a chef, in order to keep that quality of that coolness, if I want to say, because I love the experience of cooking. Mushrooms deliver that. They deliver on taste, they deliver on texture, and they deliver on experience. 3 things that I really look forward to working as a chef.
I was told I was mad twice so far. The first time when I set up the chicken business, and the second time when I set up the egg business. I think, for me, we operate at the sort of smaller end of the sectors, be it chicken or eggs, but we think we do a very good job, and that's really our secret weapon type of thing. When we were given the challenge of mushrooms, I could see it in my head how it could be done, and it was a challenge basically to go through the process and convince myself that we could do it. I think what we've had to learn within mushrooms is the cycle of growth. I think what caught us out quite significantly was how fast they grow, because we had a plan and they suddenly grew a lot quicker, so we had to react a lot quicker. So I think, our first cycle has taught us a lot, but I think the key thing is we know how to do it. We now know how to grow mushrooms, and it's now going to be a matter of fine-tuning that and hopefully expanding it into something bigger.
For me, the ultimate goal for the Little Mushroom Company, a success for me would look like if we could replicate this and if we could create a sustainable business model that we could then involve more farms and give more people the opportunity. And the opportunity doesn't just have to stay with mushrooms, it could apply to other products. And what I would love to see is people looking at what existing facilities are out there that could be repurposed and used, rather than automatically assuming that you have to go and tear up a greenfield site and build fresh. Actually, let's look at what's out there already that we could use and that could create opportunity and generate new revenues for businesses. That for me is what success would look like.
Best case scenario for this project would be get this one up off the ground, they sell well, and just really showcasing the variety of mushrooms and what can be done with them, because I think we just tapped the surface. But for me, what comes out of it and why I do what I do is because I want to be a benefit to people. And I really feel like mushrooms and cooking vegetables and cooking mushrooms and showing all these amazing techniques of how to steer away from animal products and more into creating amazing foods with mushrooms. It just gives the solution. Like, people are always asking, how can I be vegan? How can I eat less meat? What can I do? You know, and they'll come up to me and say, Derek, if you could cook for me all the time, then I could be vegan. That's why we show all this content, and it's free. We have it all on our channels, all the different cooking techniques that we're showing with all these mushrooms, because I want you to cook. It's a compassionate action. It's about culinary attractivism. It's just about doing better in the world. Like, I really feel like we all need to strive to try to do a little bit better, and this is my way of sharing that.